Hey everyone, this is Martin, and I am continuing the series of creating sustainable income today. And today I'm going to get into the thing that by far has been the most productive and profitable for us over the last, we started probably about 13 years ago on this. And before I get into it though, I'd ask if you could hit the subscribe button down below and the notification bell, turn the notifications to all. And that way you won't miss any of the videos that we're doing on this. Not trying to sell you anything, so don't get uptight about that. All right, so the thing that we have done that's been the most productive for us, and I've talked about this on other videos occasionally, and it has to do with cabin and campsite rentals. Now, before I get into details on this, I'm going to let you know that this video series was created primarily for and directed to the people that are living the homestead, off-grid type of life or back in the woods life. And so a lot of the things that we do sort of are related to that. I'm in the garden today, which is up closer to the road, so you're going to hear vehicles back there occasionally. So anyway, this series was originally designed for that group. And so, you know, when we get into talking about the cabin and campsite rentals, that's kind of directed for that, but it does apply or can work for anybody. And you might think in terms of, if you're not in that off-grid homestead kind of a group of people, you might think in terms of vacation rentals, because that's essentially what I'm talking about here. It's just because we're sort of oriented to being in the woods and camping out and that sort of a thing, that fits us. So and the other thing is, I'm going to break this down into the camping or the campsite rentals and the cabins as two separate things, because the dynamics of the two are a little bit different. And it's one of them, the campsite rental thing, is much easier to get started. Technically, it's a lot more profitable just because there's not such a huge investment into it as there is like in the cabins when you start doing cabin rentals. So basically, I'm going to talk about the campsite rentals, and I will tell you right from the very beginning here that this has proven itself to us. If I were to have to start over from scratch with nothing and had to decide how am I going to support or financially support, you know, my life experience in sort of the backwoods, back to the land kind of a environment, without any question, I would start with primitive campsites, just because it takes so little to develop them, and it's fairly easy to manage, and it does provide good income. So that would be my choice. That would be the direction that I would take. So real briefly, our story is that about 11, 12, I guess 13 years ago now, back in 2011, we kind of stumbled into a recreation property. We really didn't plan to do this way, but we ended up with a little tiny old broken down resort that had 4 cabins on it. None of them were livable. We started from scratch to renovate all of them. We got one renovated the first year and didn't really plan on renting it out. It was meant to be a family kind of escape, family retreat for us. As we started getting the renovations done, people were showing up there wanting to rent them. And so finally we decided, well, why not? I mean, it's money. When we're not using them, well, we might as well make some money off of them. And that's what got us started into this. At one point, we had 4 different recreational properties that all had either campsite rentals or cabin rentals. One of them had a tree house that we're building tree houses on that we're renting out. So that has turned into a good, lucrative business for us that really supports the things that we're doing here. And we went a lot farther into it than what you would have to do something like this. But if you are out on a backwoods piece of land, whether it's the homestead or off-grid thing, and you have the temperament for it. Now, not everybody would have the temperament to do this, even though it's a very lucrative, very attractive and appealing type of a business for us. It may not be for everybody, but if you're the kind of type of person that would be interested in that kind of a thing, it's an excellent one. So let's talk a little bit about the campsite rentals. And what I would recommend doing, is begin with like primitive campsites where there really isn't anything there other than going back in, clearing off a spot in the woods and creating a campsite around there. And you might think, depending on your experiences with camping, you might think who in the world would want to do that. But there's thousands upon thousands of people that's exactly what they're looking for, is something that they can come in, pitch a tent, or pull in a small little camper on or something, and not really connect up to anything. And it doesn't take much of anything to get that started. We're on a piece of land down here that if we wanted to start establishing campsites on here, we could take and probably just carve out 2 acres of it someplace, away from the house and away from all of our stuff, and build probably 15 campsites on it without any problem. And that would all be far enough away from each other that they would have some sense of privacy. Now, that's relative, the amount of space you need to feel like you have privacy. But honestly, where we have some of our primitive campsites right now is about 18 miles up the road from here. We have a piece of land up there that we do that on, and we started with a leased piece of property that we wanted to buy, but they wouldn't sell it. It was right next to one of our other places that where we have some cabins, and the owners of the property wouldn't sell it. So we finally convinced them to lease it to us, and it was only a 3-acre parcel, but it was between our property and the main road, and we wanted to control that piece of land in there. So we finally ended up buying it for about the first 3 to 4 years. We had it as a lease, and we didn't want to put a lot of money into it. So all we did was clear out some spots in the woods, and only used about 1 acre of the 3 that was there. And because it was more secluded back into the woods, so we ended up putting, I think, 10 on just 1 acre. We put 10 campsites, and yeah, you could look and see them, but they were divided by trees and brush and things like that. So they had their own sense of privacy, and nobody had a problem with them. During the summertime, during the spring, summer, and fall, we would fill those things every weekend, and a lot of times all the way through the week. So you don't need a lot of space in order to be able to create something like that. And again, because it started out not us owning it, we didn't want to put a lot of money into it. So we just stuck with primitive. I mean, no electricity, no water, no anything. Now, because we had property right next to it, we did have a shower house that they could go to. It was a little bit of a hike, or they could drive to it. And that's one thing that I would recommend if you're going to be doing any kind of primitive campsites, is at least have a shower house that has, toilets and running water and the capability of taking a shower. I would do that, just because if you don't, then you're just into a lot of things that you can only imagine. Okay. So, but starting that does not take that much effort. It can take almost nothing for money, just some work and effort to get it established. And because we're next to one of the other places that we have that has some amenities to it, I mean, we get $29 a night for that kind of campsite rental. And I believe that almost anywhere with just basic shower house amenities and just a place to camp, a $19.95 or $20 a night income off of each of those sites is, I would expect that could be done virtually anywhere. And if you stop and think about having 10 sites and just having them at $20 per night per site, and get 2 to 3 nights, let's just say 2 nights per week, if they come in on a Friday and a Saturday night to stay there, and you're able to fill that each weekend, during the summer and into the fall, into the late spring, that can be, what is that? That's $200 per night, basically $400 for a 2-night stay, and multiply that out times 4 weeks in a month. That's $1,600 per month in additional income that you really don't have to do hardly anything other than manage the reservations of them, and probably pick up and clean up and do some mowing or whatever occasionally, just to keep them nice and presentable. And it may sound simple, it may sound almost too simple, but it makes up a huge portion of the amount of income that we get that we really don't have to do a whole lot with. Okay, and it's something that can work, I believe, literally for anybody. Now, if you don't have a place, I mean, when we started that specific campsite rental place that we've got, we didn't own it, we leased it, and we just didn't want to put a lot of money into it, so it turned out being a primitive site. So that can be done, whether it's on your property or whether it's on another property that's close by or something. It can be done, and you can do it. Now, the part that everybody, whenever I start talking about this, they ask about, well, there's liability issues. There is liability issues. You have to account for that. Typically, liability insurance for a full year for us on a place like that adds a few $100s, maybe $200 to $300, just to add liability riders to cover incidents that happen. So liability is a negligible cost, and as long as you're going to plan on creating $5,000 to $10,000 to $20,000 worth of income on that every year, it's a very minor expense. Let's talk a little bit about the whole thing with the campers or the guests tearing up the place. Okay, and I suppose that is possible. A lot of that can be mitigated by, actually a lot of that can be mitigated by several different things. First of all, screening people, establishing rules, okay, to start with, and I know that some people don't like rules, but some of the rules that we have, believe it or not, the one thing that probably creates the most amount of damage is people that have unbehaved pets that want to come in. Now, we do allow pets in the campsites and the camper sites that we've got, because if they're going to destroy something, it's going to be either just something around on the ground, or it's going to be their own camper. So we allow pets. We do not allow pets in the cabins. And I know there's going to be people out there who say, but my pets are perfect. Okay. And there are people that have perfect pets. Most of them are not. Okay. I would say that the perfect pet group is probably about 5%. Okay. And the rest of them have anywhere in a range of well-behaved to no behavior at all with their pets. So that's where we run into the biggest problem. So we just have a pet policy that you pick up after your pets. You keep them on a leash so they don't interact with other people and other pets that might be there, and you just establish those kind of rules and you enforce them. Okay, you don't cut people slack on those things, and you can eliminate a lot of that kind of issues. The next, probably the most biggest thing that you come to, and we don't have this issue as an issue more than maybe once or twice a year, where you have the people that want to party loud all night long, because we have a quiet time. Okay, 9 o'clock at night, quiet time starts. Now, you can sit around your campfire till 5 in the morning if you want to, and visit and laugh and things like that. But if you're going to be disrupting the other people around there that are trying to sleep, then you know what? Quiet time is 9 o'clock, and you just got to tone everything down by 9 o'clock. And as long as you build a reputation for that kind of an environment there, you end up not having those kind of people come there. They want to go someplace else, or they can party, and if you're not it, then they'll go someplace else. Now, if you are that kind of people that want to cater to that kind of a group, there's a lot of those people that would be happy to come there. As far as one of the things that I hear a lot, which doesn't even really make sense when it comes to vacation rentals or the campsite rentals or things like that, is what happens when people just decide they're going to stay, and you got to kick them out. And that really isn't an issue when you are dealing with vacation rental. Those are the kind of people that want to come in, spend a weekend, then go back home and go to work. Okay, they're not the people that are looking to squat on your place and just be there forever. But again, as long as you have a pretty tight set of rules on check-in times and check-out times and things like that, that is not an issue either. And, I suppose if you wrapped all of that kind of stuff up into one big subject and said, okay, but I'm just nervous about all of the things that can go wrong. And, I will give you the best out that you can possibly ever have if you decide to go ahead and pursue that course of income for yourselves. And that is, and everybody knows Airbnb nowadays. I mean, just everybody knows how that whole thing works, mostly. But what you may not know, if you've not been a host of an Airbnb or a VRBO or something like that type of a property, they do their own screenings on the guests, okay? Just as they do the screenings on you and rate you at your ability to be a good host, they also do the very exact same thing to the potential guests. And those people that want to have an account through Airbnb, and I'm presuming a lot of the other ones out there, there's a lot of them, they screen those guests as well and tell them what their expectations are. And if you blow it as a guest at a place, if you tear something up, or you're unruly, or you don't abide by the rules of the host property, you get banished off of Airbnb. You can't even go and book anything through them anymore. So there's that whole dispute process there. They also take care of, two of the other things that are kind of a pain in the butt when you start thinking about running that kind of a business. They manage the money, for one thing. They take the reservations, they take the deposits, they hold them, and they charge the fees and whatever else that goes on there, and they only charge us as hosts 3% of the total on that. They don't charge us for anything else. So, my credit card processing fees for doing campsite or cabin rentals, if I do them myself manually, are 3%. So if they handle the whole thing for 3%, more power to them. I'm glad to give up my 3% and pay them 3%, so I don't have to do any of it. Okay, so they handle all that money. When the reservation is made, they collect the money, they hold it in kind of an escrow, I guess you might call it, and then when the guest checks in at a property, then they release the money to us that next day. So they handle all of that, and we don't have to mess with it at all. The other thing that they handle that a lot of people don't think about is some places. Now in Missouri, we don't charge sales tax on campsite rentals, whether it's for campers or tents or whatever it is. We don't, but we do have to charge sales tax on cabins. So and we've got enough of them that we manage our own process on there. We don't go through one of the Airbnbs or anything like that. But if you only have one or two or a small number of them, and you just don't want the hassle of having to have a tax ID number and all that kind of stuff, they will handle all of the taxes. They collect them and then they pay them directly to the state on your behalf. So you don't have to even touch it or think about it or anything, or forget to file it at the end of the month or the end of the year or whatever you're set up at. So they handle all of that stuff, so you don't have to mess with it at all. If there's any kind of disputes, they mitigate all of those too. So there's really no good reason why you would look at this and say, yeah, but this, okay, or yeah, but I don't want to get into that. The only thing that I would say, that if you have a problem with just being a reasonably good host, and that means different things for different people, then you might not want to get into this business. But honestly, most people that want to go camping, especially if it's a primitive site and they're not expecting a lot of other amenities and things like that anyway, they just want to be able to check in and go camp and do their thing for the 2 or 3 days that they're in, and then they want to pack up and go home. And so there's really not a lot of interaction. I always made it a policy to, at the point of check-in, to have a bit of contact with people, just to make sure that they understand, where everything is at, and how to get a hold of me if they need to get a hold of me. But other than that, I leave them alone. I let them do their thing. Some people enjoy coming around and interacting, but most of them just want to be left alone and have their experience. So you really don't even have to deal a lot with that. I guess one of the other things that around here, we're in Southwest Missouri, all of our stuff is in Southwest Missouri, and You do have to be aware of the whole idea that there's bears here and there's venomous snakes here and things like that. So you have to go through a little bit of effort if you're going to have people on your property, or on whether it's where you're at or whether it's someplace else. They have to be aware of those kind of things if they're not already aware of those. So, I mean, we just post up a little thing, or we give them a slip of paper that has, the rules on it. Plus it has, you're in bear country, so, you don't have your food out. We've never encountered a bear. We have encountered some bobcats, but they mostly just want to run away from you. And you have to give people an understanding that, you need to be watching out. If you're in the woods, you're in Southwest Missouri, there are a number of snakes that are venomous that you have to watch for. We've never had an encounter with a snake. So, but those are all just precautions that you need to think about when you're doing that. You may be in a part of the country where there is none of that stuff. So, there's not even, you don't even have to worry about that. Anyway, that is my take on the whole campsite rental. We'll get into the cabin rental thing on another video at some point. But for the most part, we do a lot of other little things that generate income. I mean, if you watch the videos, you'll see a lot of the other things that we do. But for the most part, the thing that handles probably about 80% of the income that we've got coming in is the cabin and campsite rental business that we do. And it's a good one. It's very reliable, even when times are tough and the economy is bad. You don't get as many people driving big vehicles to pull big campers into where you're at, but the people that just do the primitive, the easy camping, where you don't have a big expense to pack everything up and go, and you don't have a big nightly cost for the site rentals, that stuff just continues on all the time, day in and day out. So anyway, I hope that's been an encouragement to you. If you can, if it's been helpful at all, just hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, and we'll get into the other stuff next time. So we'll see you later. If you've enjoyed this video, give it a like and a share, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below and the notification bell. See you next time.